organization providing actual governance services. Essentially, it's a blockchain jurisdiction, which I will explain more in depth in a few slides. But today I have a specific topic to speak about, which is self-sovereignty in a digital world. Because everything we do is becoming increasingly more digital. Our romantic life, our work life, and the blockchain, of course, is taking that to extreme extents. You know, we can now title our lands online, we can do wills on the blockchain, we can do birth certificates, we can do everything, basically. It basically replaces much of the need we've had over the last couple of thousands of years for centralized institutions. But how do we handle this without it, A, becoming dystopian and actually more centralized in some ways? And how do we retain our self-sovereignty amongst the increasing surveillance, both from governments, but also peer-to-peer surveillance and pressure? Like, for instance, we have the Snowden revelations, which we are all very familiar with, of course, but also the social credit system in China, which is turning out more and more dystopian. And Western governments are not very far from it. Like, for instance, I mean, everyone shares information with everyone, right? So, for instance, if you have a date on Match.com, let's say, and that date downrates you, then it will be harder for you to, let's say, get a loan for a house, because all companies share this data between platforms. So even though the social credit system in China seems very dystopian and far away from what we have in the West, it's actually not very different when you look under the hood. So how can we live in this increasingly digital world while retaining sovereignty? So it's interesting to talk about the subject of governance in Greece, because Greece is kind of the cradle of what we perceive as modern governance, namely democracy. Nearly every nation state in the world now applies democracy in one form or another. And most people are okay with this. Like what Winston Churchill famously said, I think he said something along the lines of, democracy is a terrible form of government, it's the worst form of government apart from all the other ones. But I would actually beg to disagree with that statement profoundly. Why? Not because I think that it's not transparent enough, or it can be corrupted, or it's not representative enough, or not liquid enough, or what have you. I don't agree with it because I think it's morally wrong that simply because you're outnumbered, someone can strip away your personal rights and sovereignty over your decisions, your assets, your body, whatever. Let me give you a concrete example. So, let's say you're in a room and one person rapes you. Or you're in a room where 10 person rapes you. Is it more morally okay to be raped by 10 people than by one person? Obviously not, right? No one in their right mind thinks that gang rape is morally okay. Why? Because it's never, under any circumstances, okay to strip away a person's sovereignty, the person's right to decide over themselves, their body, their time, everything, right? Yet, everyone endorses democracy, while the very foundation of democracy is that if you're outnumbered, it's morally okay to strip away your rights to decide over your own life. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? Nation states are currently the prevailing order in the world, but nation states are a very new concept, only about 400 years old, roughly, if we look at the Westphalian Agreement, and is shifting extremely rapidly now. So imagine if we could live in a world where everyone had full sovereignty in terms of choosing their own governance services and governance models, including what code of law you want, like common law, civil law, Sharia law, whichever. What kind of decision-making mechanism you want. It could be, well, democracy, of course. It could be holacracy, theocracy, whichever. What kind of economic model you want. Capitalism, socialism, communism, anything. What if people could tailor-make their own governance model based on their needs, their lifestyle, their personality, and if they could choose it as easily that you choose, as easily as you choose, for instance, a cell phone provider or a social network or anything like that, right? That world can exist and we are building it. So here is a short video that explains it a little bit better.
Before nations, before borders, there was the Pangea supercontinent. Since then, the world has been divided by tectonic shifts, widening oceans, and stifling politics. Nation-states are crumbling under the weight of local and global challenges that they seem incapable of solving. Rather than embracing a borderless world and increasing personal freedoms, governments and multilateral organizations have overseen a surge in bureaucracy, protectionism, and ever greater intrusions into our personal lives. To prevent a drift towards tyranny, we need drastic